Have you ever had that gut feeling that someone's lying to you? We all think we're pretty good at spotting a fib, but what does the science actually say? Well, let's dive into the pretty complex and honestly often misleading world of deception.
So, take a look at this number, 54%. According to a ton of research, that's how accurate the average person is at telling if someone's lying. Now think about that for a second. A simple coin flip gives you a 50% chance. We are barely, and I mean barely, doing better than random chance.
So you're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, but I can do better than that. Most of us do. But today, we're going to dig into why it's so incredibly hard and, more importantly, what we should really be looking for instead.
Okay, let's get right into what we're calling the deception dilemma, because this isn't just about little white lies we tell to be polite. Oh no, as you're about to see, the consequences of getting this wrong can be absolutely massive.
Get this. Research from the Science of People shows that a staggering 82% of lies go completely undetected. Let that sink in. For every 10 lies told, more than 8 just slip right on by, no questions asked.
And you know what? That has a very real cost. In 2022 alone, the Federal Trade Commission reported that victims of scams lost a jaw-dropping $8.8 billion to fraud. That's not a small jump either. It was more than a 30% increase from the year before.
So why are people lying so much? Well, a study from the University of Wisconsin looked into it, and you might be surprised. The most common reason, at 21%, was simply to avoid other people. After that, it was to protect themselves or for some kind of personal gain. See, knowing the motive is really the first step.
So how do we fight back, right? For years, experts have talked about this sort of lie detection toolkit, full of classic observable signs. So let's crack that toolkit open and see what we've all been taught to watch for.
Okay, first things first. The most fundamental concept is something called a baseline. Before you can even think about spotting a lie, you need to know how someone acts when they're being truthful, when they're relaxed. What's their normal way of talking, their go-to posture? The whole game is about noticing when they change from that normal behavior, especially when the questions get tougher.
Now this is where it gets interesting. Sometimes the body just completely betrays the words coming out of someone's mouth. We call these non-congruent gestures. A person might be saying, "Oh yeah, absolutely," but their head gives this tiny, almost subconscious shake, "No." That little gesture, that's often where the real truth is hiding.
Then you've got the story itself. Liars often fall into one of two traps here. They either say way too much, just burying you in tons of pointless details to make their story sound more convincing, or they say way too little, sticking to a script they've rehearsed and just refusing to give you anything more.
And of course, we have to talk about the classic physical tells. You know them. Covering the mouth, fidgeting all over the place, their lips kind of disappearing right before they speak, suddenly pointing their finger aggressively, or that fake smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes. These are the signs we see in movies, the ones pop psychology loves to talk about.
But here comes the twist. What if I told you that this entire toolkit is basically broken? That focusing on these classic signs might actually make you worse at spotting a lie?
Yeah, you heard me right. This quote from psychologist Ronald Riggio really nails it. After decades of research, the conclusion is clear. There is no single universal sign for lying. There is no Pinocchio's nose. It just doesn't exist.
Let's just take the biggest myth of them all, that liars can't look you in the eye. We've all heard it, and probably all of us have looked for it. But here's the reality. Liars know the stereotypes too. They know you expect them to look away. So they do the exact opposite. They overcompensate, often holding way too much eye contact for way too long, trying to prove how sincere they are. So why is this all so ridiculously hard? Well, for one, there's what experts call noise. A perfectly honest person who's just nervous can look exactly like the stereotype of a liar. Then you've got our own biases. Some people just seem, well, honest. They have a friendly face, a calm voice, and we just want to trust them. We're also just naturally wired to trust people. It's how we function as a society. Our default is to believe, not to doubt. And you can never ever forget that lying is a performance. A liar is actively working to control what you think of them. It's a game.
So if the old toolkit is failing us, we obviously need a smarter way to see the truth. It's time to move beyond simple body language. And that brings us to the most important question, right? If all those classic tells are basically just noise, where should you actually be putting your focus?
The really big shift here is to stop looking so much and start listening. Really listen. Focus on the content of what they're saying.
Does the story even make sense? And here's a great technique. Ask them to tell you the story in reverse chronological order. It is incredibly difficult to keep a made-up story straight when you have to tell it backward. Or you could try something even more powerful and, a little counterintuitive. You could just be honest with them.
Instead of trying to be some kind of detective, just have a direct conversation. But how you do it is everything. Don't accuse, don't call them a liar. Share your own concern using I statements. Something like, I'm having a hard time understanding this part of the story, instead of, you're not making any sense. Trust me, how they react to an honest, non-accusatory conversation can tell you a whole lot more than any eye twitch ever could.
So, after all of that, what's the real truth about lies? What should we take away from all this?
Here it is. There's no simple trick. The real skill isn't being some human lie detector who can spot a single tell from a mile away. It's about being a critical thinker. It's about understanding the context, being aware of your own biases, and listening, really listening, to the substance of what's being said, not just the flashy packaging it comes in.
And that really leaves us with a final, much deeper question. If you can't rely on the simple signs you've been taught to look for, what can you truly rely on when you're deciding who and what deserves your trust?